The battlefield was silent. Or rather, it was silent now. Hours ago, the skies of Ryson 4 had burned with a roar of plasma fire, the shrieking thunder of collapsing dreadnoughts, and the cries of the dying. The war between humanity and the Kholin Empire had painted the ground in ash and ruin, leaving behind only twisted metal and shattered lives. Corporal Daniel Reyes trudged through the wreckage. His rifle held low but ready. His armor was dented, scarred from the firefight that had raged across the valley. He should have been celebrating survival, but all he felt was exhaustion. The war had stretched too long, and too many of his brothers and sisters in arms had fallen. That was when he saw her. Slumped against the hull of a broken skimmer was a figure. Not human, not entirely. Her skin shimmered with faint violet hues, patterns glowing faintly across her cheeks like dying embers. Her hair, silver like threads of starlight, fell across her face. Her eyes were shut, lips trembling as if whispering a final prayer. She was Kholin. Enemy. His training screamed at him, shoot on sight. Every Kholin soldier, no matter how helpless they seemed, was a potential threat. But this woman, didn't even raise her head. Her chest rose shallowly with labored breaths. Her hands were empty. Daniel aimed, finger resting on the trigger. And in that moment she opened her eyes. They were the color of storm clouds, filled with fear and resignation. She met his gaze, then closed them again. Her body went still, as if bracing for the end. She was waiting for death. Middle. Daniel's hands shook. He remembered the faces of his fallen comrades, the charred corpses on the battlefield. He remembered orders, the endless propaganda about how the Kholin were monsters incapable of mercy. Killing her would be simple. One pull of the trigger, and the galaxy would have one less enemy. But something about the way she accepted it made his chest ache. He lowered the rifle. Instead of ending her life, Daniel crouched beside her and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. A faint pulse fluttered beneath her alien skin. Weak, fragile. She wasn't a soldier anymore. She was a dying woman. "Why aren't you fighting?" he muttered, more to himself than to her. Her lips moved. The words came in halting English, broken but understandable. No strength. No reason. End it, human. Daniel swallowed hard. He should have. It would have been cleaner, faster. But instead, he reached into his pack and pulled out a water canister. "Drink," he ordered, lifting her head gently. Her eyes opened again, confusion flickering across her expression. Then, with trembling hands, she sipped. Water dribbled down her chin, and her throat convulsed as she swallowed greedily. When she was finished, she stared at him, bewildered. "Why?" Daniel almost laughed at the absurdity. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because you didn't raise your weapon. Maybe because I'm tired of killing." For the first time, her lips curled into the faintest shadow of a smile. They stayed hidden in the wreckage as hours passed. Daniel dressed her wounds using his limited medkit, binding gashes across her ribs and shoulder. She barely spoke, but her eyes followed him constantly, curious, watchful. Eventually she found her voice again. "My name is Liara." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "Daniel." Liara's brow furrowed. "You'd save me. But your people kill mine. And yours kill mine," he said flatly. "That's war. Then why mercy?" He sighed, sitting against the broken skimmer beside her. "Because I don't want to be the monster they say we are." Silence stretched between them, heavy with things unspoken. The battlefield was vast, and they were just 2 lost souls caught in its aftermath. As days bled together, Daniel tried to find a way back to his unit, but communications were scrambled. Supply drops missed their coordinates. The war had moved on, leaving them stranded. Together. Despite himself, he learned things about Liara. She wasn't a soldier by choice but by force. Conscription had dragged her from her family. She had a younger brother back on her homeworld, one she hadn't seen in years. Her voice shook whenever she spoke of him. "You miss him," Daniel said one night, as they huddled by a faint fire made from scraps of wreckage. Her storm-gray eyes glistened. "He is all I have left." Daniel felt something twist inside him. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't the propaganda's demon. She was just a sister, a daughter, a woman trapped in the same endless war he was. And against all odds, he began to care. Then came the day the patrol found them. Human soldiers, armored and armed, stumbled upon their hiding place. Daniel rose quickly, raising his hands in surrender. "Corporal Reyes, we thought you were dead," one of them exclaimed. Relief washed over him, until he saw where their guns were pointed. "Liara, enemy survivor," the sergeant barked. "Put her down, Reyes." Daniel froze. Liara didn't move, though her trembling hands clenched in the dirt. Her eyes closed again. She was waiting once more for death. The sergeant growled. "That's an order, Corporal." Ending. Time slowed. Daniel's mind raced. If he obeyed, Liara would die. Helpless, resigned, her final breath stolen by the cruelty of war. If he resisted, he'd brand himself a traitor. He thought of the water canister, the nights by the fire, the way she whispered her brother's name as if it was the last tether keeping her alive. And then he knew. Daniel stepped in front of her, raising his rifle, not at Liara but at his own squad. "Stand down," he said firmly. The soldiers stared at him in disbelief. "What the hell are you doing, Reyes? That's the enemy." "She surrendered," Daniel said. His voice trembled, but he forced strength into it. "She's unarmed. She's wounded. Killing her now isn't war, it's murder." The sergeant's jaw tightened. "Move aside." Daniel didn't move. No. The silence that followed was suffocating. Rifles stayed raised, tension straining the air. Liara's hand brushed his boot, a silent question in her touch. Why would he risk everything for her? Because mercy mattered. Because somewhere in the wreckage of this war, humanity had to prove it was still human. Finally, the sergeant spat on the ground. "Fine. We'll take her as a prisoner. But this is on you, Reyes. If command doesn't like it, you'll burn for it." Daniel lowered his rifle slowly. Relief coursed through him like fire. Liara opened her eyes, disbelief flickering there. She whispered, almost inaudible, "You chose me." He glanced back at her, a tired smile tugging his lips. "No, Liara. I chose mercy." In the weeks that followed, Liara was placed under guarded watch, a prisoner of war. Daniel visited when he could. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. She taught him fragments of her language. He told her stories of Earth. One night, behind the wire of her camp, she leaned close and whispered, "You could have killed me twice, but instead you gave me life." Daniel swallowed hard. "And you reminded me why life matters." The war would rage on. More would die. But in that shattered world, a seed of something greater had been planted. Not in the orders of generals, but in the quiet choice of a soldier who refused to kill. Liara's final words before he left the camp echoed in his heart. "You saved me, Daniel. Not with your gun, but with your mercy. That is the true power of your kind." And for the first time since the war began, Daniel dared to believe she was right.